Hello, it's Leslie here again. Today I thought I would do something a little bit different from my past videos and speak about English. I noticed that one of the biggest mistakes that English or people that speak English make is in relation to the subjunctive tense. And I've seen that a lot of subscribers on my channel are English is their second or third language. English is not their first language. So I thought I'd talk about this. But I've even noticed that people using the wrong tense in places like America, people are saying using the incorrect language. For example, instead of saying, if I went to the doctor, they would say, if I would go to the doctor, or I would go to the doctor. It's actually wrong. So I'll give you a lot of examples. This is probably the best way to teach the subjunctive is it's like give examples. It's like a hypothetical case. It's not I would go if I could. It's if I went, then something might or might not have happened. So it's purely like a hypothetical thing. First example I can think of, which is kind of rude, my father, who's not around anymore, he used to say, if my granny had nuts, she'd have been my uncle, right? So she doesn't, so that's just one example that I can think of straight off. I'll just look around my room and give examples of the subjunctive tense, okay? If my dog didn't eat the last yellow pair of glasses, I wouldn't have to buy another pair. If this calculator hadn't leaked, or if the batteries in the calculator hadn't leaked, I'd be using this now, right? If Nokia was based on Android, they would have more sales, or they'd be more popular. What else can I say? If I didn't always experience headaches, I wouldn't have a packet of Aspro Clear on my desk. That's not true, by the way. I don't often have headaches. It just happens to be sitting there. If I was living in America, this tape measure would be in inches instead of centimeters. If my dog was barking, I wouldn't be making this video. If you could see below, you would see that that's where my microphone is located. If the quality of the iMac webcam was good, I wouldn't have to buy another separate one. I'd be using the inbuilt one, right? So I hope you're getting the pattern, which is like, if something was, like in the past tense, if I put this down, like it's not, I would put this down, it's if I put. Actually, put's a bad example because put in the past is put. This is why it's tricky, because the past tense in English is kind of irregular, I think, from what people have said to me. So I'll go back to my first example, which is the doctor. If I went to the doctor, it's not if I would go to the doctor. It's just, that sounds so wrong to an English-speaking person to say if I would go to the doctor. That is like completely wrong. And if I went to the doctor is a different thing to saying I would go to the doctor. Because if you're saying I would go to the doctor, it's like I would if I could, or I would if I had more money, or no. But if I went, it's like it's already happened. If I went to the doctor, I'd have this diagnosis already. Or if I became a doctor, I would know this already. Like it's a hypothetical. It's not if I would become. So yeah, it's actually quite easy to form it. It's just the past tense, and that's it. I think maybe it's difficult for people to know when to use it. But I'll give a few more examples, and I think that's the best way to practice to learn to give examples. So I'll try and think up some on-the-spot examples. Hang on. If you had a Mazda RX-8, you would know that it floods easily and often doesn't start and the battery dies. If you had one. If I wasn't such a night owl, I wouldn't have to take vitamin D supplement tablets. If I hadn't bought this product, the box wouldn't be on my desk. Or you could say it the other way around. This wouldn't be on my desk if I hadn't bought this product. If I didn't have to change the SIM card into this, I would be using it more often when I go cycling. You can also say, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Like that's a threat type of thing. Like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. It's a common one you hear. If I wasn't learning Russian, I wouldn't have a Russian keyboard. If I didn't send something with Australia Post last week, I wouldn't have this receipt. If he saw me now, he wouldn't recognize me. If these glasses weren't so cheap, I wouldn't have 8 pairs of them. If these Mars Lumograph pencils were green or any other colour besides blue, they wouldn't be my favourite pencil. If I didn't show you these homemade mouse mats, you might not have seen them. If I hadn't have lived in Europe, I wouldn't be so interested in Finnish. If I hadn't have got culture shock in Russia and Japan, I wouldn't be interested in those, or wouldn't be as interested in those languages. If this dragon fruit was a little bit smaller, I could have eaten all of it. If I had more money, I'd buy a full frame camera. If I hadn't have been hit by a car, I wouldn't have this scar on my wrist. If my dog wasn't such a sook, well, she wouldn't be the same dog. If I wore 3 pairs of glasses on my head, people would look at me strangely. If OxyContin wasn't such a potent addictive drug, there wouldn't even be an opioid crisis epidemic. If that bicycle computer I showed you before had have worked with Android 4, I wouldn't have had to buy this new smartphone. I think you can also say, if it had have worked. Probably sounds a bit more correct than if it worked. If these little buttons, lithium button cells, had a bitter coating, maybe babies wouldn't swallow them. If you knew just how good wasps and spiders are for the environment, you wouldn't kill them. That's a bit of a tricky one because it could also be if you knew just how good wasps and spiders were anyway, you get the idea. If spaghetti was a kilometre long, it would be a lot harder to eat. If you were here now, you'd know that I just had a coffee break. If Elon Musk knew just what a boring shithole planet Mars is, he wouldn't even bother going there. If 7 billion people were living on Mars right now, they'd want to come here to Earth. That's probably easier said or easier to understand if I said if 7 billion people lived on Mars, they'd want to come here. But it's not like in the past tense in saying that they had lived there. It's saying if they lived there now, they would know. I'd like Apple computers a lot more if they had more USB ports. Well, I think that gives you some idea of the subjunctive case in English. I hope this video has been somewhat helpful to you. That's all I have today. Bye.